So why is it that most producers can easily come up with loops, interesting ideas, but when it then comes to actually arranging that track, they are hopelessly lost? Now, if that sounds like you, if you feel like your tracks just never live up to the expectation of a professional release, then stay tuned because I have a treat for you today. In today's video, I'm going to share with you some mental models you can use right away to make better decisions and create clear and impactful arrangements that basically mix themselves. And by the way, I've done this myself, so I've walked the walk and not only talked the talk. So I'm a professional mixing and mastering engineer specializing in this field, and I basically share everything that I've learned along the way. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned, make sure to subscribe. And also, if you currently still struggle with finishing songs, I have a little treat for you. You can get it at pickyourself.com/framework. This is a very simple guide that you can use that shows you 3 steps that you can implement right away to get to finishing one song a month, which I think is a very beautiful goal to have. The link is also in the description, make sure to grab it, and now let's jump right into the topic of today. Now, over the past few years, I've worked with a lot of artists in one-on-one coaching sessions and also the people who've taken my courses. The number one thing that I feel is lacking in terms of arrangement is not so much the idea on where to go with the track, like the direction is more or less clear in most cases. But one big issue that almost every artist has that I've talked to is that they lack prioritization. And this means when I listen to their music, there's just so much going on in the track that they just don't give the listener room to breathe. They don't give them an idea of what to actually focus on. And this lack of prioritization makes all the elements weak instead of like highlighting a specific element and making it strong. And so this is the skill that I want to share with you today and give you like practical examples and mental models you can use to actually make these decisions along the way. And the thing that's so beautiful about this is, in the end, when it then comes to the mixing stage, you will actually have less trouble mixing the thing. It will sound very close to your reference tracks simply by making a few correct and bold decisions along the way. So let me share with you a couple of examples. So here we are inside of Ableton Live, and I'm going to show you a specific part of the track. It's the breakdown that then leads into the main drop of the song. Like this is part of the core idea creation phase is what I call this. And first of all, I just want you to listen to this and try to follow which element actually wants to take over the lead here. Just train your critical listening skills along the way. We'll give it a listen and then we'll talk about it. So even if this is an interesting, strong core idea, which I think has a lot of qualities, there's still something wrong with it. There's just too many elements playing at once when the main drop hits, and it takes away from the actual emotional impact that I want to make with this piece. The question is now, what do we actually want to focus on? What should we prioritize here? And also, why? What's the decision-making process behind this? And this is exactly what I'm going to share with you now. So the mental model number 1 that I use here is I think about the end listener, the person who's gonna consume this, be it someone who plays the track in the club, someone who listens to it in the club, or someone who just enjoys it at home. And I want to imagine, okay, what is the one element, not 2 or 3, what is the one element that I want to get across here? What should they listen to? It's almost like reaching out to them, taking their hand and kind of pulling them through the track. This is always the mental image that I have in my head. And there's always one anchor element that basically pulls them through this process. Now, what is it in this case? There's a lot of different elements, and we'll just quickly go through them to give you an idea of what is even possible. So here we're now looking at our leads, the whole section that kind of tries to be at the forefront. And as you can see, like there are 4 different tracks here that are doing something. We'll just quickly give you an idea of what each element is. So we have this one here. Let's do it here in the main part. Then we have this one here. Next one is this here. And last one is this here. This comes in and out at specific parts. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel that every individual element is quite cool on its own, but when they play together, it kind of gets a little bit messy. So I'll just solo all these leads together, so you get an idea of what happens when they all play at the same time. So, do you get what I mean? It's a little bit messy, especially with a lot of delays and reverbs and so on. And the question is, how can we make sure that the actual emotion that we want to bring across gets to the listener? And this is definitely not happening right now. So, let's discuss a few options that we have. Now, to me, the two core elements are actually the top one. This down here is just some, I would say, background ambient stuff that kind of belongs to the lead section, but still adds more of a vibe, but not necessarily the melody itself. So we have this one here and this one here are the main competitors, so to speak, for the first most important element. So the first thing that I try is just boldly muting things and see if I can live without it. This is the first thing that I would try. And here, in this case, I will just mute this second lead here, but keep the top one and then this like ambient shimmer stuff. And we'll see. Let's try it out. Go back here and let me mute this and then we'll see. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely feel that this is working much better than the example before. But on the other hand, it's also lacking a little bit of that nice texture that we had in the original thing. And so what we can do now is we reverse it and we try out what happens if we mute the top one and keep the bottom one. So let's do this, and we'll mute this one, keep the other one, and then we'll listen to this. Now, this is interesting. So from the texture, the richness that it adds to the track, it's super nice, but it's missing some of that rhythmical foundation now. And so we kind of have to figure out a way to get the best out of both worlds and to kind of combine the two things into something that actually works and does not get in the way. So in terms of clear prioritization, I would put the focus on the top one and see what can I do to the bottom one so that it adds to the track instead of getting in the way. And this is exactly what we're going to do now. So I will just quickly zoom in and we will let these things play together and figure out what is actually getting in the way. Now here you can see what the actual MIDI notes are. Just make this a little bit closer. So this is the bottom part that's playing here. So very interesting. I think it's just those top notes that actually draw too much attention to the listener and distract them. And also they get in the way of this nice shimmery sound that is coming from the other parts above. So what I would try first of all is just see what happens when we get rid of them. Yeah. So it kind of works, but it also gets a little bit boring in my opinion. So I think we need to find a way to keep it more stable, but still add to the emotion and the interest of the track. And this is where I think about, okay, what can we do harmonically to make this more interesting instead of, putting in some crazy melodies that get in the way. And now all we have to do is we have to extend this part, duplicate it, switch around the notes until we find something that actually supports the track in the way we want it. So let's try that out, and I will show you what came out of it in a second. Okay, so what I've done here is I basically just extended the part, then added a couple of different notes in here, kept the rhythm more or less the same, and you will now notice the difference in sound. It's still like a little bit loud overall. I would maybe bring it down in volume later on, but this is now how you can listen to it more closely and analyze for yourself what happened. Alright, what do you think? So I personally get the impression that this supports the overall impact of the song in a very, very positive way. I would definitely bring it down in terms of volume so that it's just like a little bit underneath of the main melody here. But the cool thing is you can also now make the next part even more interesting just by switching around a couple of the notes here. So let me quickly show you what I would do here. I would just first of all get rid of these other parts here. Then duplicate this one, and then inside of this part you can play around and see how this part ends and how you want to then extend it into the next one. What I've done now is I have duplicated this big part once again and then switched a couple of notes around just to keep it interesting over this long period of time where it's playing. I will now let it play for you. I will also dial back the volume a little bit so you get an idea of what the final thing might sound like in the end, and then we'll talk about it. So actually, instead of lowering the volume, I think it might be an even better idea to use an auto filter and put this on top of the second lead just to make sure that the mid-range and the top end is not getting in the way of the first lead. And I will just dial this in as we go. You will take a listen and then we'll discuss this. Now, as you can see, I already automated the filter cutoff frequency a little bit, and this is done on purpose to give the track energy when it actually needs it. So when the harmonies are going up, I want a little bit more of these overtones in the overall production. I think this is a really nice idea to give it a gentle push of energy. And I never wait with automation for the very end of the production process, as a lot of people do. I do this in the moment when I'm still close to the emotional result that I want to get out of it. And so right now we've hit the sweet spot. We actually gave the listener a clear idea on what to focus on, but also we have enough variety, enough texture and momentum in the track going so that it's not too sparse and too boring basically. All right, just as a quick summary, here are the 3 takeaways that I want you to implement in your productions. The first one is you decide which is the one element in this part that you want the listener to focus on, the one element that brings across the main emotion of the track. Secondly, I want you to use fewer elements overall, but better ones. So this is like a non-negotiable. And the third element is you want to make sure that all the other elements that surround this one element that you want them to focus on, You want to design them in such a way that they support this lead element and not get in the way of it. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. What is the thing that you will implement in your productions from now on? What have you learned here? I'm happy to hear from you. And if you haven't already, make sure to grab the Finisher framework at pickyourself.com/framework. That is it. See you next time.